We're almost all over 85, with the oldest being 92. I got involved in 1998. I've been with them ever since. And if you've ever seen pregnant manatees play, you've seen us play. We don't move too fast, but we have fun.
Welcome to the global phenomenon, Surviving the Survivor, where we're all just trying to survive in a rough world.
And we are back in the saddle. Karm, it was touch and go the last couple of weeks. It was a good thing that we recorded 2 podcasts in 1 week. You want to tell the audience why?
I got COVID.
You look like when Ethel Bug Johnson gets yelled at me for chewing the furniture. That's what you look like. You look almost guilt-ridden for getting COVID.
Well, I held out 25 months during the epidemic, and finally I brought it home, gave it to my 88-year-old husband. And
who currently sort of has it, but he was given the monoclonal antibodies, and he's doing great, right?
He's doing great. We were very fortunate.
The
person who is helping us, the nurse, she also got it from me. So no wonder I look like a puppy that was peed on.
Shout out to Anna, by the way, who helps take care of my father. But it was touch and go. First of all, whenever you get sick, which is very rare, you turn a little psychotic. You started screaming and putting everyone down, especially me. And then when Dad got sick with COVID and you had to take him to the hospital, I wasn't sure if he was going to return from the hospital. And I had a moment of real reflection about life. Thinking back to by the way, it was the 40th anniversary of my bar mitzvah, the day I became a man. I posted photos. Why did Jews delineate 13 as manhood? Because you lived less back then?
Exactly. You were like a non-existent old man by 30.
I didn't have a hair on my body back then. So listen, big announcement. We started a newsletter, and we're also now on Patreon. If you're following the Dan Markel murder case, which we are following, or you're interested in Havana syndrome or any of the other scintillating topics, please drop your email into our YouTube comments. We'll make sure you get signed up for the newsletter. Karm, our guests today are fantastically fabulous. I watched the documentary on them. It is a movie called Splash, and they make quite a splash. They are women basketball players. And the catch is, they're all older than you. We'll be right back. The main schmooze.
Do you want to help my son? His company, Content Partners Media, specializes in brand video and content creation for innovative companies and others. Please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com and hire him. I repeat, please go to www.contentpartnersmedia.com.
Welcome back to Surviving the Survivor. It's time now for the main schmooze.
Karm, this is right up your alley here. The only problem is you always claim that you are not coordinated. I think that is an excuse. But today we have among the most scintillating guests we have had. And by way of introduction, let me tell the audience who these people are. There is a new documentary on ESPN2, and it is titled Splash, as in splashing into the pool, but these people make a splash in life. This doc is about the oldest team in the Senior Women's Basketball Association. Not the WNBA, but the SWBA, the Senior Women's Basketball Association. Right. And the movie is getting rave reviews. Now, it was filmed over the past 3 years. Obviously, there was a big COVID factor in here, which is why it took so long. And it is in celebration of the Title IX 50th anniversary. Karm, do you know what Title IX is? Did you do any homework for this one?
No, I don't know what it is.
Glad you asked. Title IX became law in 1972, 3 years after the birth of your son, me. It is a 50-year anniversary. It banned sex discrimination in education. And as a result, it gave generations of girls like your daughter, Arden, and your five granddaughters and 2 from me, so that's 7 granddaughters. It gave them promise of access to sports and other educational programs. Before we get going, a big shout out I wanted to give to the people who made the movie. That is Robin Kopp, Bonnie Cohen, and the crew from Actual Films for making it all happen. I actually teared up watching this documentary last night, which I didn't think I have any emotions left, but apparently I have some. So I'd like to welcome now to the podcast Marge, who is a young 93, and Jay, who should not even be really allowed to participate because she's so young at 82, and Joy, who is the director of the Senior Women's Basketball Association. Hello to one and all. How are you?
Hello. We're so happy to be here with you.
And we are very glad to have you here. So, Joy, let me actually start with a question for you. So, at the beginning of the documentary, it says that, quote, basketball for older adults was a breakout search over the last 2 years. How come?
We've had a lot of wonderful media attention in the last couple of years. The New York Times ran a delightful article about us that was picked up by a lot of local news media. And then we had a sports channel TV crew come and chat with us and spend a time, because people who meet our wonderful Splash team are just blown away. And as people have read and seen, we've had lots of women inspired to come back and play, or to come and play, try and learn to play for the first time in their lives. So we've had, 20 or 30 people come newly to basketball or return to basketball. And it's just so joyful to see women in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s start to play and come back to play and remember the delight of running or hobbling around the court.
Yeah.
Now, let me tell the audience a little bit about Marge Carl, who you're looking at in that beautiful blue Splash t-shirt. She turns 93, as she said, in August, and she says she's frustrated at being kept off the court for the past few months by some medical issues, which I guess we can get into if you want to. And Marge hopes to be back off the benches and on the court. Marge, how did you celebrate your 90th birthday, which was 3 years ago almost? What did you do?
I skydived.
I saw that. I tell you, I admire you. You have no idea. You are looking at the biggest coward when it comes to getting up in the air. Oh.
Now, a real quick intro as well for Jay Hanley. She is one of the Splash's youngest players. As we said, she's only 82. She packs a lot of spirit and determination into her tiny person. One of the most admired players on the team. By practicing twice a week at least, she's developed a great outside shot. And Marge, your shot is not too shabby. So, Marge, how tall are you? Because I was watching, I was trying to figure out. You're tall.
I originally was 5'7", but because as I've gotten older, I've lost 2 inches. I'm 5'5.5" now.
Wow, I
thought you were taller.
Yeah, I thought you were way taller. So everyone,
How long does she play? How long is Marge?
Ask Marge. She's right there. Why are you asking me?
He told me, Carmela, you can interrupt me, but you can't interrupt our guests. So I'm interrupting him. How long have you been on the team, Marge?
I started in 1994. We only had 2 teams then, and it's grown.
And how many teams are there now?
I think we've got about 16 teams.
Yeah.
We've probably got about 140 players altogether.
Yeah.
And the Splash team, I understand, is the oldest in terms of the age bracket. Is that right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes, by quite a bit. We've got another team who are in their
80s.
late 70s, early 80s. But Splash is definitely the oldest, and Grace, who's not with us, is the oldest player, who's 96.
Yeah.
96. And Marge, I think when I was watching the documentary, I'm not sure if it was you, and I'm sorry if I'm suggesting it was, but one of you guys was playing. You guys all went and played, which was awesome. In Phoenix at the halftime of the WNBA game.
Somebody fell.
Yeah, and one of you fell. Was that you? One of you?
No, that was Nina Duncan, the one that spoke on the first part of that tape.
Well, let me tell you something. My father, God bless him, is 88 years old. He actually just had COVID. He's doing well. But if my father fell like that, he would look like cane sugar. Like the stuff that he would never have survived
she got
that.
Right up and made a basket.
Yeah, it's wild. It's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, these are a group of tough women, I'll tell you. You know, that basketball is a physical game, and sometimes you fall, right, Jay?
Yeah.
Yes, I still have a scar.
I don't allow anybody to yank me up. I say, let me get up by myself. I roll over, get on my knees and get up. I don't want anybody pulling me up. Yeah.
Which brings me to a question. I also watched the documentary, and it made me feel, very rarely do I feel like I have a complex of inferiority. But when it comes to ball games in general, I think I have some kind of a brain damage. When I was little, when they threw a ball at me, I would duck. Instead of, I'm telling you, something is wrong with me.
She's a Holocaust survivor, so it was her defense mechanism.
Maybe I associated with something more dangerous, but in any case, I was horrible, and I admire you guys so much. You have no idea. And then on top of it, playing at your age. But I have to tell you something that I think is kind of funny. I don't have osteoporosis, but I'm close to it. And the doctor said, if you fall, don't worry, you are not going to break anything. You are very well padded. You know, by fat.
Plenty of padding there, Karm.
Yeah. So I would be protected.
Jay, let me ask you, where do you get your competitive spirit from? Why are you out practicing when the team's not even playing? Where does this come from?
Well, look, I'm 4'11". I weighed 88 pounds this morning. And I'm 82 years old. If I can't shoot, what good am I to the team?
That's why Marge looks like she's 7'1". It's all relative. I thought Marge and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar were the same size. So, Marge, I started this by asking Joy about there's one of the biggest searches out there is for older adults playing basketball. How is your use of Google these days? Are you a big do you hop on the computer often? Are you internet savvy?
Me?
You.
I'm not on a computer.
You don't use a computer?
Do you use a computer?
Well, I used to sit at a computer for 8 hours for San Diego Gas and Electric troubleshooting.
But not anymore. That's why Marge is here with me, because she doesn't, you don't use Zoom at home, right?
No,
you don't have an internet.
I use a Thomas map.
Thomas Maps. Who can see Thomas Maps anymore?
Yeah.
Marge, I have a 3-year-old, a 6-year-old, and an 8-year-old. They're never going to even know what a map or a payphone is. But let me ask you, what do you think of every time you go out and you see everyone with their nose in their cell phone? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think of it as a breakdown of communication. They're not communicating with their friends that are right with them. They're sitting there doing this. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to me.
Or with their mothers. When we are out of here, he does the same thing with me. He's with me, and he's working on.
Yeah.
So you know what I do? I say, hand me over your phone now.
Put it down. Let's talk.
One of the best lines in the documentary, and unfortunately I cannot attribute it to any of you, comes from, I thought it was Nina, but she pronounces it Nina, correct?
Nina.
Yeah.
Nina.
She just turned 90.
Yeah, and her soundbite in the movie, at the beginning of the movie, says, if you've seen pregnant manatees play, you've seen us play. Do you find that offensive, Marge?
I think Nina is unfair to our players. I've never seen a pregnant manatee, but they are really ungainly creatures, and that is not fair. There is a lot of grace and skill still going on in the court when Splash is on there.
Yeah.
I saw that in the documentary. The way you do, what is the term? Do baskets or what?
Shoot baskets.
Shoot baskets.
Shoot baskets.
I am
Karm.
so ignorant in this area. The only thing I can tell you is the only reason I am here is because us old people have to unite and do everything that we didn't do before. So now I have a podcast. I already have 60 episodes. So I feel we have to be like groundbreakers. I always say we have to do what generations before us would not do, So I'm happy that I am overjoyed that you are still going out there and doing it. And and I saw the documentary. You do it fantastically. I saw it.
Yeah.
Marge, let me ask you a question. So my mother was afflicted with COVID about a week and a half ago, and she's not used to being sick. She's kind of a control freak. She is a Holocaust survivor, and I think that impacted her. So the minute she got sick, it's tough love. We have an unusual relationship, but she has a tendency to lash out at me like a shark out of water. And when she got sick with COVID, she began snapping like a lobster and saying to me that I am overworking her because I had her doing a podcast every week and doing research, that she doesn't want to work this hard. She should be retired at this age. And then I meet you, and you guys are playing basketball. Jay is going to the gym and practicing. Jay is my mother's age. You're older,
A little
Marge.
older.
Nina is substantially older, and my mother is sitting here she's bitching about this. Shouldn't she be active at this age? It's just starting life, right?
Now, wait a minute. What do I tell you when I don't have COVID?
You still whine, Karm.
Yeah, I whine, but I say, thank you for taking me out. I call it the nursing home. We live in a condominium, and I nicknamed it the nursing home because there are a lot of older people there, and my husband is in a wheelchair. But I'm very grateful that he asked me to be his co-host. And as I said, we did already 60 different stories, and we never did anything, never, and probably never will, as different and as interesting as this one.
Jay, what do you think? What do you think about the fact that my mother is hosting a podcast at 83, a weekly podcast?
I think that's great.
Jay, your thoughts?
I think it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So you should ask Jay what else she does.
What else do I do?
No, you should ask Jay all about what else she does when she's not playing and practicing basketball.
Jay, what do you do when you're not playing basketball?
Well, I take tap dancing lessons on Tuesdays. We just had a recital. We all got all dressed up, and I wore a big blonde wig. It was a lot of fun. And I walk about 2 miles every morning. And I do weights a couple of times a week. And just
that's enough. Enough.
Jay is humiliating me.
But wait, let me tell you, Jay, let me tell you, I get competitive. I have to tell you, I work out twice a week for an hour with a trainer where I lift a lot of weights, where I do flexibility exercises on the floor. And without that, I couldn't be lifting my husband and tossing him around because I'm the night nurse. He has a lady during the day, and I'm in the. But the point is that we are active, and this was one of my questions that I wrote down. I wanted to know, how do you guys keep in shape?
playing
That's
basketball.
how I do. I worked with a trainer for about 6 years, and he helped me so much. But then when the pandemic started, I stopped going to the gym, and I figured, well, my husband doesn't like the gym, so he had weights at home. So I figured, well, I'll just start hibernating and doing the weights on my own, and I just keep it up. It was the same with Tai Chi. I didn't mention I do Tai Chi every day.
I forgot that one.
I was going to classes a couple of times a week, but now I do it on my own.
It's what I blame. I know it sounds funny when you get COVID and everybody says, where did you catch it? And so the only change in my life that I made in the recent month was to going to the gym regularly, even the times when I don't have the trainer. So I went to the gym, and I blame it on the gym, because you forget after a while that, you should worry about COVID when you go to a gym. But you cannot live like that without. Did any of you catch COVID ever?
I haven't.
No, they're not the three of us. I mean, we have insisted that all of our players be vaccinated and boosted. And that's been, as you can imagine, a little bit, there've been a few people who chose not to be vaccinated and are really unhappy. And we are unhappy that they are not back playing with us. But the huge majority of our players are very supportive of our efforts to try to play as safely as possible. So the YMCA has agreed to allow us to open. There are doors to the outside in the gym, which we used to have to keep locked, but they allow us to open those up, and we've got big fans blowing. And of course, the gym is airy, and we have tried to, make sure that anyone who's in the gym with us is vaccinated and boosted. And so touch wood, it's worked pretty well. We've had a few exposures on the court where somebody has played and then discovered that they have been exposed and got COVID, but relatively few of our players actually. And we've had, as I say, I think no COVID infection on our courts during our games.
That's very good. That's very lucky.
Karm, quick quiz. Joy's accent. Is it A, British, B, South African, C, Australian?
One of those of the common. Your accent is from the Commonwealth.
Do you think it's A, British, B, South African, C, Australian?
I don't.
I would have to go with C, Australian.
Joel, you lose.
South African. B.
I was born in South Africa, but I spent 6 years doing my graduate work in England. And then the other thing is, as a child, my grandmother, so when my grandmother, in 1948, when the so-called United Party, the sort of more left-wing party, lost the general election to the Nationalist Party, who were the Nazi-supporting party, my grandmother was disgusted and appalled and felt that, South Africa had been betrayed by its voters, and she hated that apartheid regime and didn't want me, her favorite grandchild, to sound like a South African. So she sent me to speech lessons when I was a little girl, so that I would sound more British than South African.
So you see, everything was there to confuse us. The messages were confusing.
They were. So I'm a tough one. A South African can hear
I could
my
only,
accent.
And I don't have good musical ear. The only thing I knew is that you had a different accent from mine.
So, Joy, let me ask you this. How often is the league year-round? When does Splash play, and who are they playing against primarily?
So we have we have this organization called Senior Women's Basketball Association, and we run two different leagues that do play year-round. We play on a Thursday evening. You can choose to join a team and play on a Thursday evening and or on a Sunday during the day. And Splash, many of the Splash players don't want to drive out at night.
No.
But so they play on a Sunday only. And on Sunday, it's our biggest league. We have about 16 teams. And so Splash play against, we take turns playing against each other. So our sessions are 8 weeks long, and all the teams play each other. And we tend to have the stronger teams play more against each other, and then the less strong teams, who also tend to be the older teams, but not necessarily play against each other. But I mean, we all consider it such a privilege and a delight to play against Splash.
By the way, where are you located? I forgot to ask it. It's very important. Where are you located geographically?
We're in San Diego.
San Diego, yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, and if anybody's listening here who's in the San Diego area, find our website, SWBA, or just Google senior basketball, senior women, and we love to welcome new players.
By the way, I went on your website and you guys sell swag, but you don't have shirts. You got to get shirts and hats. I need a shirt. I'm going to steal
She's
that.
Wearing it.
I'm going to steal that from Marge.
Splash.
And actually we do. So we do have
I'll trade you a Surviving the Survivor hat for a Splash hat.
All right, we'll send me an address, and I'll send you a Splash hat. They come in white and powder blue, so
awesome.
You can choose which one you want.
I love it. So listen, I think there's a lot to be learned with age and wisdom. And Marge, I hope you're all right if I bring this up because it was in the movie. You're a tough broad. You are from the mean streets of Queens, right?
Right.
Have you ever heard of Run DMC? Have you ever heard of the rap group Run DMC?
GMC.
It's probably after her. What are you joking?
It's in the 1980s. They're a rap group, but they had a great line. They said, "From Queens come kings," because they were rappers. But listen, Marge.
I left New York in the 50s and moved to San Diego.
Smart move. But things weren't always so easy for you. Tell the audience, what did you go through with your husband, if you don't mind?
Well, he was extremely intelligent. He was a stockbroker, but he also was an alcoholic and a gambler and suicidal. And it was not easy. I dried him out many times, talked about committing the act of suicide. And after 20 years, I had it. I filed for separation and then divorce. I had 2 children I had to think about. Yeah.
And
don't go any further with it.
Karm,
you are the producer.
This is my show.
So I tell him what to do.
So Marge, he threatened suicide while you were married, and that made it
Yes, and so did my daughter when she was an adult. I prevented it because I heard what she was saying and I knew what it meant. You get a good ear for it after a while. And I stopped. I called for help, and help arrived. Friends of mine already notified the police, and we took her for a rehab. And then we did it again. Our pastor was involved, and he took her and got her into rehab, but it didn't work.
It didn't work. It's sad, but I understand she
same genetics. Yeah.
And it was eventually a heroin overdose. Is that right?
Correct. Yeah.
And obviously,
she had been clean and sober for 10 months, and it was just wonderful to have her back. And my son and I, we just were so happy. And then that happened. Yeah.
But I'm sure basketball helped overcome it.
Yes, it has in a lot of ways. Yes, I've met a lot of wonderful women, and they're very supportive. When I hurt myself, I pulled my back. They couldn't. I mean, it's a sisterhood. They were there for me. They got me a walker. They took me to appointments that I needed to have. they were just wonderful. Anything I needed, well, they got it for me. Yeah.
It's
It's
like
a sisterhood.
your family in a way. In a way, they are like a support group
Yeah,
and
my
a family. Most
Yeah, my-
most older people. I was a social worker in my previous life, and most
Yes.
older people don't have a support group, and that's one
No.
of the many reasons that they get sick and they don't function. And this gave you the physical and the support, so it was like a real blessing.
It is a blessing. I mean, at the end of the tape, when you see a former Splash player, Corey, who had dementia, she has nobody. She had nobody except the sisterhood. They were there for her. So she
And
wasn't alone.
Corey was a very beloved player who, as you said, got dementia and then recently passed away, right?
Right.
Yeah. And I should say, I mean, some of the other players have, one of the players stepped up and managed Corey's finances.
Yep.
And somebody else.
So I did her nails and
Right.
got a haircut.
Yeah, people would visit her. People from SWBA looked after Corey completely and sort of managed her care.
Yeah.
When she was living in a situation that wasn't good, people looked for a better
Moved her out of there.
a better home for her, moved her, took care. I mean, the group of women took care of Corey completely like a family. I mean, right to the end.
Yeah.
There were SWBA players visiting her constantly, going to all through COVID. CJ, who is the wonderful coach.
Yes,
for
she's an
Splash.
angel. She's an angel.
She arranged Zoom meetings every single Saturday for Splash all the way through COVID for the year when we were not able to play until we were all vaccinated. And she would make sure, I mean, she keeps contact with phone and visits, and no matter what's going on in her life, she's still also looking after, apart from coaching Splash.
Yeah.
CJ is just the
angel.
most wonderful. She is an angel. Yeah.
She is an angel. She is an angel.
Jay, were you part of this whole thing or you came after?
I'm new. I've only been with Splash a few months, so I was not part of the video except at the very, very end when they taped a game, and I played in it with them, but I wasn't part of the years-long making of the whole thing.
Yeah, but I think this is something that you must have picked up, this relationship between them, and the game itself gives you a certain community, right?
Absolutely. Everybody has just been so supportive and so nice and just wonderful to me. And I love the game. I love learning. It's just wonderful.
Yeah.
And CJ is such a good coach.
Yeah.
And she lets me play the whole game, which I love.
That's because you are a kid.
Jay, what do you say?
She's a good shooter. She's a good shooter, this hour.
Jay, there is, and Joy, I'm interested, and also Marge, it's not a stigma, but people sort of, in a way, write off older people sometimes as they're just old and they're just sitting at home doing nothing. Jay, what is your response to that sort of thinking?
You want my schedule?
Good answer. Good answer.
And Marge, how about you? What about people who say, oh, she's in her 90s, she's just sitting at home knitting?
I get out, this situation, since I'm able now to get out and I walk every day. I have to walk every day. I have got to get my stamina back. That's my aim, is to get my stamina back. Yeah.
But I can't tell you, Joel, how many women, of the young women in our organization, look up to Splash and the older women and say and are inspired, and we all hope that when we're in our 80s and 90s that we should be anywhere near as vibrant and determined and strong and joy loving as Splash and the group are.
100%. Marge, again, you can get a lot of wisdom for older people. So if there's someone listening out there who is going through, let's say, addiction or struggling, what is your advice to them since you've been through that?
to get up out of that chair, turn the television off, and go outside and walk. Make some new friends. Don't isolate yourself. That's the worst thing you can do.
You can also consult with Jay, because Jay has so many. You can tap dance, you can do Tai Chi, you can do, what else are you doing? Exercising.
The only thing you can't do is whine that you're doing a podcast with your son and I'm giving you too much work. Now,
but there are incredible resources for older people out there. I mean, in San Diego, we have a group of community colleges, and they run what they call the Emeritus program. Yeah. And it's free classes in piano, music appreciation, flower arranging, ukulele, singing, law, consumer ethics and rights. And they have hundreds of classes, and they're free and open to everybody. And they're targeted at us retired people who are looking to fill our leisure time in our lives, now that we own our time, rather than owing it all to an employer. Jay, how did you come to find SWBA and start playing basketball?
Many years ago, and I don't know exactly when, in the early days of basketball, I started playing. But in those days, it was very different. I mean, you bought a pair of shoes and you bought a ball and you played and you did the best you could. Well, I was taking classical guitar at the time, and I didn't want to break fingers. It was like a year after I started, and I quit. And there was a reunion. I don't know how many years, 25 years or 20 years. I don't remember how many years, but I was invited as one of the originals. And I went, and oh my gosh, this is so different. There's a rookie program, and there are all kinds of activities. And I thought, maybe I ought to try this again. And so that's what I did.
Yeah. I didn't know that you had been one of the original.
Oh, yeah. I remember her.
Oh.
But I was only there for about a year. I played on a team with Linnea and Audrey.
These are some of our founding members way back in the,
1995 was our first Olympics in San Antonio. We had two teams.
And I should mention, you guys have won 6 gold medals in the senior games. And do you still travel?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so one of the Splash players went to Florida earlier this year. So there's this National Senior Olympics organization that holds the National Senior Olympics in 21 different sports. And the competition is every second year in a different city around the US.
Yeah.
And this year it was in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. But a lot of our teams didn't go because they did not have COVID precautions. There was, they suggested that people be vaccinated, but they didn't require vaccination or testing or masking or anything. So a lot of our players stayed away. But one of the Splash players, Mama Day, joined a team from another state and competed in the 80-plus age group, and her team won the gold medal.
Wow, that's amazing. Now, Nina, I saw she's got 3 acres. She lives on a farm. She had something sort of tragic happen. I know her son was in a terrible accident when he was just 3 years old. Marge, what's it like for you and Jay to see someone like Nina, who is, she's so resilient, right? I mean, she deals with a lot, but she comes back and she's a fighter. So Marge, what's it like? Is that inspiring for you?
Sure. Yeah, you don't give up until you can't do it anymore. Just keep doing it.
What I also love, sorry, go ahead, Karma.
I think that he told me not to interrupt people. I think that younger people like Joel don't realize that we have all been through a lot, and we had our losses I lost a child, you lost a child, and then she has a handicapped son. It's almost impossible, in my perception, from what I see also as working in social work through the years, impossible to get through, with the perfect family, everything perfect, and get to the age of 83 and everything is like absolutely perfect. So we all have our baggage, but this team, this group, this activity is such a good, like an antidote for the negative. So I think that if more people realize that they could have the antidote, I think the worst thing is isolation. When older people don't go, don't have and now with COVID, it was really bad. It was really bad. We didn't go out for a whole year. We did not leave. We went downstairs, but not even to the grounds near the condominium. We had to go a little bit like on the side because they wouldn't even put out chairs because they didn't want people to congregate. So they encouraged isolation. And I think isolation is what killed a lot of people because it's like a poison.
Mm.
So this
I agree with you. And the other wonderful thing is when you're doing exercise and getting together with people, and it's an escapism from the difficulties of life, right? It's because your mind is completely taken off all that. You're so focused on what's happening on the court and the interaction. And of course, you're watching other people all the time and interacting and reacting to the 5 other players on the court. So it's the exact opposite of isolation in all sorts of ways. You're moving, you're with people, you're doing something that's fun and joyful. And one of the great things about so many of our players is they have such a nice sense of humor, right, Jay?
Absolutely. And that they're so nice to us.
Well, to everybody. I mean, there's a lot of kindness. I mean, not always, there's sometimes when somebody's getting in your way and is and blocking you, their tempers can flare on the court. People can get very angry and frustrated and upset. But
you do that one time, but not the next.
But it doesn't usually last.
One time, but not today. Marge, do you take if you lose a game, or let's say your shot gets blocked, which it doesn't because you got a crazy overhead shot, but do you get upset if you lose a game?
Yeah, I just the idea of playing. We're playing. It doesn't.
Do you ever trash?
If we're in the competition in the Olympics,
sure.
It does matter. It does matter. We think we're really out there to win. We do the best we can.
But when we're playing in our league, I mean, we have a scoreboard, and on Sunday, Splash played an amazing game. What was the score, Jay? 90-something to 80-something?
Yeah,
something like that.
I mean, astonishing.
Yeah.
And most games don't go anywhere near that sort of score.
That's a high-scoring game. How long are the games?
We have 2 20-minute halves. So 40 minutes of play.
That's a high-scoring game for 40 minutes right there.
Yes, it was exceptional. I'll tell you, Jay was on fire. She did not miss a shot.
Yeah.
Marge, being from Queens, do you ever talk trash?
My mother would kill me.
Yeah.
She always said, language, it shows if you're intelligent and you don't have to use profanity.
That I'm very unintelligent. I'll tell you, and my mother, all my children learned all their curse words from grandma over here. Every one of them.
I admit that I use curse words, but I have a whole theory why I use curse words. You want to hear it?
Yes.
The reason is when you learn a new language, and you get really frustrated, and you don't have the vocabulary yet to express what your things. The only thing that you can use is a nice, beautiful 4-letter word. But honestly, I don't use it that much. Really don't. And my grandchildren admitted that they learned some of it in school.
Most of it from you. Most of it from you.
No.
I'll tell you why I get offended these days, Marge and Jay and Joy, is I, like yourselves, am extremely busy. I work at CBS News still. I have my own business. I have my podcast. I have 3 young children. And many times now I will say to my mother, Karm, I'm going to keel over and die young. And she says to me, you can't die young anymore because I'm now 52, almost 53. She never says you're doing a lot. I'm proud of you. You work so hard. My mother's all about tough love. Is that a good approach, Marge, or a bad approach? She's always telling me what I'm not doing or what I'm doing wrong.
Well, I'm trying to educate
That's what I tell my
him.
son.
Say that again?
That's what I tell my son. He's 60 and he's retired. He retired when he was 52.
Oh, wow. He's smart. He was making money, unlike someone I know.
He
Okay.
was a computer engineer.
There you go.
Yeah.
He probably started a small company called Google.
Well, he started with some of them. I'm very proud of him. He worked 2 jobs and worked his way through college. He didn't ask for 1 cent from me.
Wow.
Just like you, Joel.
Yeah,
Just like you.
I've never asked for a penny.
Because he was given before he asked.
You know what Jay and Marge, I'm a happily married man, but one of my hobbies in Miami is I search for elderly women without husbands or children who might have a lot of financial resources. And then if I'm nice to them, you know.
He's a sick.
Good luck with that. Joel.
That's one of his sick fantasies.
My sister's going to yell at me for that.
No.
That was just a joke. It was just a joke. It was just a joke. So, Marge, let me ask you, what was it like for you to, there's actually news tied into this, but what was it like for you to go play at halftime of the WNBA game in Phoenix? You played at the Mercury game, right?
It was great. Corey was on my team. And of course, she had dementia, and she was supposed to throw the ball into me. And all she did was smile at me. And I said, throw the ball. And she just smiled at me. And Di was right behind her as the referee. Throw the ball to Marge. She wouldn't throw the ball to me.
Yeah, that bit didn't show in the video.
I'm begging her, throw the ball.
But who fell? Who fell there? Somebody.
Nina, right?
Nina was the one that fell.
Yeah.
And it was interesting on the film, you saw her kind of struggling with her running, and then she went down.
Did you?
But the thing was that it was very positive to people watching. An elderly woman, she got right up and made a basket. And that's a very positive thing. She didn't lay on the floor moaning and groaning. She got up.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, I should say with Marge's story about Corey, who still played, with her dementia. I mean, that's part of the kindness of our group of women. I mean, Corey would forget which way she was supposed to go, and all the other players would kind of help her. And I remember a game when Corey was trying to make a basket and the ball wasn't going in, and someone else would rebound and give the ball to him. Come and try again, Corey. You can do it. You can do it. And I mean, her joy when that ball went in the basket, made us all so pleased, right? So we have a motto almost, temper your play depending on who you're playing against and with. Yeah. So the stronger players.
I have to tell you what I was thinking about. We had this uncle who was 98 and a half when he passed away. And he was sharp until almost 96. At 96, and he loved what kept him going was playing poker with his friends. And every week, 2 or 3 times, they got together, played poker. One day, he calls me up, and his name is Uncle Alan, and he says, they say they don't have a game put together for me. Next week, they don't have a game put together for me. And I felt that brought him down because they excluded him. And if they would have, and I asked the others who were also in their 90s, I said, why don't you play with my uncle anymore? And they said, he's so slow. It takes him too long. I said, what's your rush? You have the whole afternoon. I said, give him the time. And I think that's what caused his rapid decline then, not his age.
Yeah. Well, we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't do that. We carried on having Corey play even when, she really didn't have the cognitive skills.
I saw in the documentary her facial expression, and that was the facial expression of a person with dementia. Like happy but doesn't know what is
she's
really
adorable.
going. She's adorable.
She reminds me of your Yola Nanny.
Yeah, my little old
reminded me. So I brought up the Mercury game again because there's some big news there. Did you meet Brittney Griner, Marge?
Oh, yes. We have a picture of her with Gracie.
Well, and
Gracie underneath her arm.
Wow. And you know what's going on with her now, right? She's stuck in Russia.
She went to court yesterday, yeah.
And what happened?
I do not know the answer to that, but she's still being detained in Russia. Marge, if you could speak to Vladimir Putin right now, Marge, what would you say to him?
What are you gaining by holding her? She's an American. Let her go. Let her go.
Marge, I have got to get your number, and when my mother yells at me, I'm going to have you call her and yell at her. Please, because I love that Queen's accent, and my mother is rough on me.
Poor boy.
She's very rough on me.
Poor boy.
Jay, what?
I just remembered Corey when we were in the Olympics in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I told the Tennessee team that she has dementia. So please be kind to her. And they were very kind. And I missed the basket. The ball came back out and she put the ball right back up. A normal way, not this way, this way. It went in and everybody went nuts.
Yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah,
that was
I do.
something.
I do.
That muscle memory is unbelievable.
Yeah.
May I ask you, do you have video library of all these different games?
We have some on video, but by no means everything.
Yeah.
You need to keep recording. Jay, I have an 8-year-old daughter, Vita Aaliyah, and a 6-year-old daughter, Zizi Elise. What is your advice to my 2 young daughters as they grow up through this world?
Get out and play sports.
You hear that, girls?
Yes.
Marge, what is your advice to my girls?
You do what your heart tells you to do. If you have a dream to do something, do it. Do it. Don't let anything keep you back. I went back to the university when I was 60 years old, interned for a job and was hired. And I retired when I was 80 years old.
Good for you, Marge.
Anything's possible. You got a brain, use it.
Marge, people who listen to this show will know that I am disproportionately hung up on money since I have 2 weddings to pay for, 3 colleges to pay for. How important is money in life? Is it important, or because you just said you should do whatever you want to do? If you have a passion.
I've been very blessed with the companies that I work for. They had corporate was corporate in those days. And especially San Diego Gas Electric takes very good care of me. Yeah. And then I worked for New Alternatives as a social worker, and they didn't have a pension plan, but they paid me well. And I invested.
In Google. And Joy, lastly, what would you say to my 2 young girls? I'm curious on your thoughts.
Oh, listen to Marge and Jay. It's a beautiful world out there. Most people are kind and loving and wonderful. Not everybody. There are a lot of shits out there, but be a decent person. Be kind, be loving, be caring, and go for it. Work hard, aim high. And when the things that are worth having are worth working hard for.
Yeah.
I like that. I like that. Things that are worth having are worth.
I have one final request here, and that is that if you guys travel again and you make your way to South Florida, you'll bring my mother onto the court.
No, don't do that, because I am really brain damaged. By that time, I'll get a certificate from a neurologist.
and just so I have it on the record, I want this on the record. Jay, the next time my mother says she's being overworked, what should my reaction be?
She's being overworked.
Yeah, she tells her I give her too much work with this podcast.
Well, I think she does a wonderful job, and I bet you in her heart she's enjoying it.
Beautiful. And Marge, next time my mother complains, what do I say to her?
Suck it up. Take a walk.
Marge, my mother came here in 1961. She's never lost her accent. You moved in Queens in 1950. You never lost your accent.
I know I heard my echo on a telephone, and I realized you still have that accent, Marge. You have not lost it.
I love both of them. And Joy, I love your accent too. The South African. How dare I said Australian. How dare me.
No, it's British.
It's a mix. It's a hybrid mix. But
that's why I said you have a Commonwealth accent.
So Joy, can we plug anything for our global audience here? Anything we can plug? The SWBA?
Seniors, life is just beginning. You have the luxury of your time to yourself once you retire, and don't waste it. Don't waste a minute. Go out, have fun. There's still a lot of fun to be had. Yeah. And anyone in San Diego who wants to come play senior basketball with us, you have to be 50 years old and willing to be vaccinated. And we had a player called Suzanne, who we lost at the beginning of COVID. But Suzanne would have said, if you don't mind working up a sweat, you can come and play.
And don't feel like you're too old to start. We had somebody come yesterday that's going to be a splash player, and she's 75 years old, and she's never played basketball before.
Yeah. Right. And she only came because her wife was a basketball player and really wanted to come back and play. And she had never played, but she wanted to be supportive of her wife. And so she came along to give it a try. And she's not particularly sporty. I mean, she's a little bit like you, Karm, where she's a little frightened of the ball, but she's really, she was smiling a lot yesterday, and she's doing beautifully.
We're so glad to have her.
Listen to that, children out there, kids and other kids, that it is never too late. And right on cue, every time, guys, that I try to wrap up an interview, Carmela, what would you like to say to
I just wanted to tell you that I'm not completely a loser, because I skate, I ride a bicycle, and I swim.
You ice skate?
Yes.
When did you ice skate?
Well, you didn't see me in the last X number of years. But I, as a child, as a young adult, I learned how to bicycle. So I'm really not I probably have no eye-hand coordination. That's why I doubly admire you guys. Not maybe.
My father's 88 and she's 82, and they still do work out a few times a week with a trainer, and they do their thing. So again, I think the lesson to be learned here from all of you, from Marge and Jay and Joy, is it is never too late to get after it. Is that right?
Yeah. You got to move this wonderful body.
Yep. And never too late to learn something new. It's learning
Right.
new stuff that keeps
This
you
doesn't
young.
retire unless you let it.
Your brain. She pointed to her brain.
And guys, we should plug
The documentary is called
documentary.
Splash. The documentary is called Splash. I believe it was playing on ESPN 2, and you can find it on YouTube.
Yep.
Beautiful documentary. It brought me to tears. Not much does.
All right.
So thank you guys so much. If you know any wealthy single ladies in their 90s, send them my way. And it was an absolute pleasure. And let's please stay in touch and let us know if we can help you in any way.
Yeah, and if any of your teammates are going this way, we are here. We are
Great.
always
Thank
ready
you
to
very-
have people for lunch.
Oh,
Thank you for
wonderful.
having us.
It's been fun chatting with you, Karm and Joel. Thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thanks.
Thank
Best
you.
of luck.
Thank you.
Best of luck. I know you're going to win that 7th gold medal. Thank you. Thanks, Marge. Thanks,
Bye
Jay.
bye.
Be right back with a
We'll
new
give it a shot.
schmooze.
Welcome back. It's time for the news schmooze.
Karm, I know you can't believe it, but we're starting to get an audience and followers, and someone just messaged mid-broadcast asking how you were feeling.
So why don't I answer?
Because I will answer. We're in the middle of a show here.
Well, how do you know how I feel?
Because you seem to be doing much better because you're putting me down again. Now, let me ask you a question.
Joel, don't do this victim.
What did you think of the Splash players?
I admire them wholeheartedly because they do something I could never do.
Karm, I'll be honest. I don't think you're doing enough right now. I think that you're starting to fall into like a self-pitying mode. That happened with COVID.
Oh my God!
And
Don't
you
do
need-
this because I'm gonna walk out. It's not true.
They just started their lives. They just started basketball. They said it's never too late. I mean, you could be playing Wall Street. This is a time to do it when there's a dip in the
Joel,
market.
stop.
But were you inspired by them?
Joel, stop pimping.
Were you were you inspired by them?
I was inspired by the fact that they can get that ball into that basket.
What do you think of Marge's New York Queens accent?
I think Marge is one in a million.
Marge will slap you in the face if she doesn't like something you do, and I love that about her.
No. She
She's
is
a sweetheart.
doer and a sweetheart.
Yeah. And that Corey, by the way, who had dementia, she reminded me of your Yola Nanny. I didn't even know how you're related to Yola Nanny. She was your aunt?
She was my grandmother's sister.
She was cute. I remember meeting
There
her.
were only the two of them.
And we had Aunt Simmy. Aunt Simmy used to ice skate at 88.
Yeah, and she got her degree in
Like linguistics
nutrition.
or whatever.
No, in
same difference.
nutrition.
All right, Karm.
And was a hospital nutrition.
We've got the news schmooze
at
to get
80.
to. I'm bringing this up. This is going to be old news by the time it's out, even in a week or two. But her remarks came as a result of ex-aide Cassidy Hutchinson speaking in staggering detail to the House Select Committee hearing on Tuesday about Donald Trump's character. Hutchinson portrayed an unhinged leader who often veered wildly out of control. The committee obviously was investigating the January 6 attacks on Capitol Hill, but Trump's character was also destroyed during the hearing. Now, this is being relayed by Stephanie Grisham, who was, I believe, Melania's press secretary. Or actually, I think she was Donald Trump's press secretary for a while. Weird story. Stephanie Grisham's husband was a sports anchor in Tucson, who then went on to call some UFC fights. What a small world. But she has a book out called I'll Take Your Questions Now, What I Saw in the Trump White House. And she said that Mr. Trump's handlers designated an unnamed White House official known as the Music Man to play him his favorite show tunes, including Memory from Cats, to pull him from the brink of rage. There was testimony in this hearing that Donald Trump, on the day of the insurrection, tried to grab the steering wheel of the Beast, which is the presidential limousine, and then tried to grab the Secret Service throat. I bring all this up
I watched the actual
hearing.
hearing.
By the way, I thought that Cassidy Hutchinson was like, 37, 30. She's 25. And when this happened, she was like, 23, 22, whatever. The whole point in bringing this up is, what is your I've never asked you this, your psychological analysis of Donald Trump? What is his deal?
Very honestly,
yeah. He's a lunatic.
First of all, I think I'm not going there, but I don't know if it is true or if it is false, because I heard that the Secret Service testified and denied that he grabbed the steering wheel.
They say that they would testify under oath that did not happen.
Exactly. So don't give me one half of a story, because that makes me look really stupid. Give me a whole story, or don't give me a story.
I didn't know you had such journalistic integrity.
I have total journalistic.
Okay, aside from that story, just knowing what you know about him, what is your psychological profile of him?
I don't have any new psychological profile.
On to the next.
He's very openly, bluntly, inappropriately nasty. Like when he called Kelly, what was her name?
Megyn Kelly.
Megyn Kelly, that her bleeding from her eyes. And
yes.
I mean, that wasn't enough for me. I don't need this additional...
We're on a tight time frame today, Karm. On to the next story. And this story enrages me, which is why I picked it. Trophy hunters are slaughtering an animal every 3 minutes with UK. This is a UK story. With UK marksmen among the world's most prolific killers. This is a special story profile done by the Daily Mail. British hunters have won prizes for shooting more than 100 different species, including endangered ones, such as lions and polar bears, according to this report by the parliamentary group, who are looking to now ban trophy hunting. Among them are canned, quote unquote, canned lion hunts, where animals are bred in captivity and shot in enclosures. What do you think of a person who, for fun, and by the way, Donald Trump Jr. is one of these guys who kills polar bears and lions and tigers and elephants for fun? What do you think of these people, Karm? What do you think of these people?
What do you think I think of?
I want to know. I want to hear you say it.
I think they're murderers.
It's a sick psychopathy. Get joy out of that.
Psychopathy?
On to the next story.
Psychopathy? I don't know if the word exists, but they are really sick murderers. Murderers.
Donald Trump Jr., you're a murderer. Okay. New Brew, spelled capital N-E-W-B, lowercase R-E-W, is no ordinary beer. You know what makes this beer different? You know what makes this beer different? It is made and brewed in Singapore, and it is made with recycled sewage. The alcohol beverage is a collaboration between the country's National Water Agency, pub, as it is called, and local craft brewery, Brewerkes.
Why do I need to know this?
Because this is the wave of the future. They are now taking recycled sewage water and repurposing it. I actually talked to a guy who was, do you remember this?
I'm not interested. I'm leaving the planet in a few years, and you guys drink the sewers.
Would you drink sewage beer?
I don't drink beer, period.
We'll be back right after this break with 3 questions for Grandma.
It's time now for 3 questions for Grandma.
It's not that sick, Karm. It's the news. People are drinking sewage-laden beer. Okay, on to 3 questions for Grandma, and then we're recording another podcast because we are good like that. First question from the beautiful Vita Aaliyah. What does an organ do in your body? And I don't think she means like the piano.
Every part of your body has a different function. They imagine like when you watch an orchestra, some people play the violin, some play the drums, some play the trumpet, the oboe, the different instruments, and together create a beautiful music. All these different organs make our bodies work perfectly.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. On to the next question. Again from Vita Aaliyah. J-Mac opted out today. He broke up grumpy. He says he has 2 girlfriends. He's overwhelmed by camp. So he opted out of the question phase of this. So 2 questions from Vita. The next one is, When a baby is little, why does it drink out of the mommy's boob instead of a bottle?
The reason that should drink from mommy's boob is because mommy's milk has a lot of very nutritious and beneficial qualities, and the formula that is put into baby bottles is artificial and doesn't have, a lot is missing out of it.
Final question comes from the beautiful Zizi Elise, who said that her superpower yesterday, she said this, was peeing in public restrooms. I don't know where she comes up with this, but she said that that was her superpower. On to her question. Why does cotton candy dissolve in your mouth? And I did not even know she knew the word dissolve, but I was impressed.
Well, cotton candy is sort of like a little threads full of air and very light of sugar. And then when you put it in your mouth, it melts down to the sugar, which is a very small part of the whole thing.
That was a much more detailed answer than I was expecting, and I appreciate it, and so does Zizi Elise. Any final thoughts on this beautiful podcast day? Were you inspired by these women who are older than you playing hoops?
I am so proud of the whole
By
idea,
the way,
the concept.
What did you think of the fact that for her 90th birthday, she jumped out of an airplane?
I saw that.
What do you think? You would have screamed at me if I did it on my 52nd birthday.
I was telling somebody that when I was watching.
Would you ever jump out of a plane?
What am I, crazy? Don't I have enough problems?
Do you want to
already?
jump out for your 83rd? I'll go with you.
You want to know something? I have zero desire to jump out.
If you could do one thing right now, what would you want to do? If you could do anything.
I'll tell you later.
Love you, America. We'll be back next week.
I love you, America. I hope I feel better. And I took my vaccine and I still got COVID.